On the morning of the 17th of June 2024, Jay Slater, a 19-year-old apprentice bricklayer from Oswaldwhistle, Lancashire, disappeared while on holiday in Tenerife, Spain. What began as a trip with friends to attend a music festival on the island's popular southern coast would soon spiral into one of the most talked about missing persons cases in recent memory, drawing comparisons to the disappearances of Nicola Bulley, Madeleine McCann, and others whose fates captured global attention. Jay had travelled to Tenerife to attend the NRG Music Festival in Playa de las Americas, a well-known tourist resort and party destination. On the final night of the festival, Jay left the area with two men he had recently met, one of whom was later confirmed to be Ayub Kasim, a man with a prior conviction for drug offences in the UK. The men drove Jay 35 kilometres north to a remote Airbnb in the village of Masca, situated in the Parque Rural de Tenerife, a mountainous and treacherous region far away from where he was staying. The next morning, Jay reportedly attempted to walk back, a journey that would have taken 10 to 14 hours on foot. Reports suggest that there were no taxis available and no buses scheduled for another 90 minutes. At around 8:50 a.m, Jay made a phone call to his friend Lucy Law, telling her he was lost, cut by a cactus on his leg, without water, and only had 1% battery. The call ended abruptly, and he was never heard from again. The disappearance prompted a major search led by the Guardia Civil, aided by helicopters, drones, sniffer dogs, volunteers, and even a specialist Dutch search team. But despite extensive efforts, no trace of Jay was found for nearly a month. Then on the 15th of July 2024, a body was discovered in the Juan Lopez ravine, near Jay's last known phone location. It was later confirmed by the High Court of Justice of the Canary Islands to be Jay Slater. A post-mortem examination concluded that Jay died from traumatic head injuries, consistent with a fall from height. The injuries were reportedly so severe that death would have been instantaneous. As details emerged, the case ignited a media firestorm. Speculation spread rapidly across social media. TikTok and Facebook were flooded with conspiracy theories. Fake fundraisers were created. Jay's grieving family faced harassment, impersonation, and online trolling. But behind the headlines, the theories, and the tragedy was a real young man. Born on the 26th of April 2005, Jay had been described by family and friends as a beautiful boy, a loyal friend to many, and one of a kind. He loved football, tennis, and spending time with people. He had played for Huncote United FC from the age of 6 until 17. At the time of his death, he was studying at Accrington and Rosendale College as an apprentice bricklayer with a bright future ahead of him. But Jay's life, like many lives, was complex. In 2023, a year before his disappearance, Jay was convicted of violent disorder in connection with a group attack on another teenager. He received an 18-month suspended sentence. That incident made headlines locally and, after his disappearance, was reported in national media. It is a part of his record, but not the whole of his story. This episode will present the official timeline of Jay Slater's disappearance, from the music festival to the call for help in the mountains, and the eventual discovery that brought his story to a tragic end. What follows is not speculation. It's not entertainment. It's the presented truth, one which follows a particular narrative, a narrative that many feel does not make sense and requires some deeper questions to be answered. It is also important to note that an inquest into Jay's death is still ongoing, a vital process that yet may offer clarity on the timeline, circumstances, and importantly, key witnesses whose testimonies remain elusive. It stands as a reminder that this case is far from over, and that answers may still come. Jay Slater had travelled to Tenerife, one of Spain's Canary Islands, with two friends, to attend a music event that was expected to be one of the highlights of the summer for British festival goers abroad. The event, the NRG Music Festival, was held at the Papagayo Beach Club in Playa de las Americas, located on the southern coast of the island. It was a 3-day celebration of electronic music, DJs, and youth culture, drawing crowds from across the UK. Jay was one of hundreds of young men who had come for the experience, sun, music, and a break from everyday life. On the 16th of June 2024, Jay attended the final day of the festival. At some point following the event, he became separated from his friends and left the Playa de las Americas area with 2 men he had met at the festival. One of them was later publicly identified as Ayub Kasim, a UK national with a prior conviction for drug offences. The second man had not been named publicly. The three travelled by car 35 kilometres north to Masca, a remote mountain village situated in the park rural de Tenerife. Masca is known for its steep terrain, sparse population, and near total isolation from the busy resort on the southern coast. The group headed to an Airbnb property called Casa Abuelatina, a quiet and rural accommodation perched on a hillside. According to later reports, Kasim claimed that they had stopped to buy drinks near the Airbnb on the way to the property. During this time, a selfie image was sent from Jay's phone to a friend, showing a young man in the back of a car. The accompanying caption suggested that he had just robbed a Rolex with 2 Somalian kids and they were planning to sell it for £10,000. However, there's been many significant online debates about the authenticity of the message. Many observers believe the person in the photo does not even resemble Jay, and it remains unclear who actually appears in the image, or whether the message was serious, fabricated, or sent by someone else altogether. No official statement has confirmed any theft of a watch that night, nor has this theory been substantiated by police. Nonetheless, it remains one of many elements of speculation that would later fuel online theories about what actually happened that night. Jay spent the night at the Airbnb, seemingly far removed from the familiar surroundings of Los Cristianos, where he and his friends had originally planned to stay. Whether he intended to return later that day or had made other arrangements is not known. What is clear is that by the following morning, Jay was on his own, and from that moment, the events surrounding his disappearance would escalate into one of the most widely followed missing persons cases of the decade. On the morning of the 17th of June 2024, Jay Slater was seen in the mountain village of Masca, having spent the night at the Airbnb located in a remote, elevated area surrounded by steep cliffs and rugged terrain. According to reports, Jay was informed by the property owner, Ofelia Hernandez, that the next bus to Los Cristianos, where he was staying with his friends, would not arrive until 10 a.m. That would be more than an hour's wait, and with no apparent local taxi services operating and poor mobile coverage in the area, his options for returning were limited. However, it has later been discovered that there are taxis available a short walk away from the Airbnb. Hernandez later stated that she saw Jay leaving the property that morning, and she remembered driving past him as he walked briskly away from the village, but crucially, she noted that he was heading in the wrong direction. At 8:50 a.m., Jay called his friend Lucy Law, sounding distressed. He said he had missed the bus and was attempting to walk back to Los Cristianos on foot, a journey of approximately 45 kilometers, which would take 10 to 11 hours under difficult conditions. He told her that he was lost, needed water, and had cut his leg on a cactus. He also said that his phone battery was down to 1%. The call then cut out. Jay's last known phone location placed him in the vicinity of the rural de Tenerife National Park, a vast protected natural area with deep ravines, jagged rocks, and minimal road infrastructure. Around the same time, Jay also video called his friend Brad Hargreaves, who later stated that it appeared Jay may have slipped on loose gravel or was in an unstable area. However, due to conflicting accounts between Lucy and Brad, it has remained unclear which of the two calls occurred first. Both friends say they were concerned about Jay's safety. Just 14 minutes after a phone call with Jay, Lucy Law reported him missing to Spanish authorities at 9:04 a.m. This rapid escalation raised some public questions, with online speculation noting that Lucy appeared to know his general location and had spoken to him moments earlier. Some observers found it unusual that she would file a police report so quickly, rather than attempting to return to Masca or coordinate a pickup, especially since she later visited the Airbnb herself. Shortly before this, Jay had reportedly posted this photo on Snapchat. This would be one of the last digital traces of his presence before his phone signal was lost entirely. It has never been confirmed if this is Jay in the picture. Despite the early call to the police and the immediate concern from his friends, Jay's decision to walk through an isolated mountainous region with little water, no reliable phone signal, and almost no knowledge of the terrain proved perilous. As the hours passed with no word from Jay and his phone remaining offline, panic began to build among his family and friends, unaware that they were about to be thrust into a desperate, weeks-long search under the eyes of a watching world. With Jay Slater officially reported missing at 9:04 a.m. on the 17th of June 2024, Spanish authorities quickly initiated a formal search effort, one that would soon grow into a large-scale operation, drawing global attention. The search was led by the Guardia Civil, Spain's national police force, and took place primarily in and around the rugged landscape of the rural Deteno National Park, where Jay's phone had last pinged. The area is known for its steep ravines, uneven terrain, and a lack of consistent mobile signal, a treacherous place for any lone traveller, especially someone unfamiliar with that region. Initial efforts involved sniffer dogs, drones, helicopters, and foot patrols navigating the area's dense vegetation and sharp drops. Jay's disappearance was classified by the Spanish Missing Persons Organization Association as a case involving a person deemed highly vulnerable. Despite intense efforts, no sign of Jay was found in those critical early days. On the 19th of June, just 2 days after he was reported missing, the search was briefly redirected south to Los Cristianos area, where Jay had originally been staying, following a potential sighting or tip. However, this lead was quickly ruled out as a dead end, and the focus returned north to Masca and the surrounding terrain. In the days that followed, a new theory began to emerge, that Jay may have attempted to follow a poorly marked or unofficial trail through the mountainous park in a desperate effort to make it back to his accommodation. The physical risk of such a journey without supplies, phone battery, or guidance was extreme. The scale of the operation continued to grow, with local police, fire crews, and mountain rescue teams covering areas spanning miles of dangerous terrain. At one point, teams searched a ravine estimated to be over 2,000 feet deep, using ropes and advanced equipment, but again, there was no sign of Jay. There was one notable incident during the search. On the 25th of June, officers looking for Jay stumbled upon a 51-year-old Scottish hiker who had been missing since the 21st of June. Found in a ravine near where Jay had last been seen, police noted that the man would not have been able to leave the area on his own. However, the hiker claimed he was experienced and did not require rescue. Though unrelated to Jay's case, it served to highlight the treacherous and isolating nature of the landscape. As speculation intensified online and in the press, Spanish authorities continued their efforts, now joined by between 30 and 40 volunteer searchers. Among them were specialist dogs flown in from Madrid and local volunteers familiar with the terrain. But by the 30th of June, less than 2 weeks since Jay's disappearance, the Guardia Civil announced the discontinuation of the official search operation. This decision sparked immediate backlash from the public, particularly from Jay's family and the wider British press, who felt the search had ended prematurely. In response, police clarified that they had been conducting discreet and targeted searches away from public view, citing the need to avoid disruption from onlookers and social media influencers who had descended on the island, many of whom were live streaming or creating speculative content for TikTok. While the physical search efforts scaled down, the investigation remained active, though officials made it clear they had no evidence to suggest Jay had been the victim of a crime. To the frustration of many, especially his mother Debbie, the case seemed to be retreating from urgency. But hope would be reignited in mid-July when a new team, independent of local authorities, arrived on the island with renewed purpose. As public frustration grew over the decision to suspend the official search, a renewed effort quietly began behind the scenes. On the 14th of July 2024, a specialist volunteer search team from the Netherlands arrived in Tenerife to assist. Comprising of 6 experienced volunteers and 4 trained search dogs, the team brought with them advanced search capabilities, honed from years of similar operations across Europe. The Dutch group, though not affiliated with any government body, had been involved in previous high-profile missing cases and were motivated by the sense that more could still be done. Jay's family welcomed their presence with hope. However, just one day after their arrival, on the 15th of July, Spanish authorities reported the discovery of human remains in the area of interest, specifically within the Juan Lopez ravine, a remote section of rugged terrain near Jay's last known location. It was a narrow, treacherous spot that had been previously deemed difficult to access. The discovery was made close to where Jay's mobile phone had last pinged nearly a month earlier. His belongings and clothing were found near the body, suggesting that the remains had not been moved. Due to the terrain's steepness and isolation, a helicopter from the Canary Islands Emergency Services had to be deployed to help retrieve the body. The next day, on the 16th of July, a preliminary autopsy conducted by the Guardia Civil and later confirmed by the High Court of Justice of the Canary Islands formally identified the body as that of Jay Slater using DNA fingerprinting. According to the autopsy, Jay had died from traumatic head injuries, consistent with an accidental fall from height. The findings indicated that his death would have been instantaneous, and there were no signs of foul play. After nearly a month of agonizing uncertainty, the official confirmation brought a tragic sense of closure to Jay's loved ones. His remains remained in Spain briefly before being repatriated to the UK, where a second post-mortem examination confirmed the same cause of death, a fall from significant height. Though authorities continued to maintain that no crime had occurred, the circumstances leading up to Jay's death remained the subject of intense public interest, with questions still lingering about how and why he ended up alone in such a dangerous place. As the search for Jay Slater escalated in both scale and media attention, his family wasted no time in travelling to Tenerife. On the 18th of July 2024, just one day after Jay was reported missing, his mother, Debbie Duncan, and his older brother Zach flew out to the island in a desperate attempt to aid in the search efforts and get answers. Debbie's presence quickly became central to the unfolding story. Her public appeals for help and updates from the front lines of the search drew both sympathy and scrutiny, but nothing could have prepared her for the ordeal that lay ahead. Not long after arriving in Tenerife, Debbie reported receiving an anonymous and deeply disturbing text message. The message read something along the lines of, "Kiss goodbye to your boy, you're never going to see him again." Its source remains unverified, and authorities have never officially confirmed who may have sent it. But for Debbie, already reeling from the trauma of her son's disappearance, the chilling content only compounded the fear and emotional toll. The message suggested a sinister possibility, that Jay may not have simply become lost, but could have been deliberately harmed or abducted. In the days that followed, Rachel Hargreaves, the mother of Jay's friend Brad Hargreaves, also travelled to Tenerife to support the search. Rachel quickly became a vocal figure on social media and was present alongside Debbie during several of the early search efforts. While some praised her for helping to amplify the case's visibility, others questioned her growing role in the public narrative. Nonetheless, her involvement placed the families of Jay's close friends firmly at the centre of the unfolding investigation. This eerie communication and the evolving dynamics around the case would continue to fuel speculation, both constructive and harmful, as the world watched closely for any new developments. As the days passed and Jay remained missing, the emotional weight on his family, friends, and the broader public intensified. The situation quickly transcended from a local missing person case and became a story of national and eventually international concern. Jay's mother, Debbie Duncan, was at the forefront of public appeals, speaking to the media with raw honesty. She described his son as a beautiful boy, one of a kind, and the happiest and most smiley person in the room. Her heartfelt statements stirred widespread empathy and captured the emotional toll unfolding behind the headlines. Jay's older brother Zach also stood firmly beside their mother, offering support on the ground in Tenerife while trying to navigate the unfolding chaos. Friends back home in Lancashire described Jay as a normal, hard-working young lad who was deeply loved by all who knew him. He was remembered as having a zest for life, a passion for football, and a deep bond with his circle of friends. In response to the unfolding tragedy, the community in Oswald's Whistle took visible steps to honour Jay and support his family. Streets were decorated with blue ribbons, a symbol of hope and solidarity, and a book of condolence was opened at the West End Methodist Church. A memorial service held there drew dozens of people who lit candles and shared memories of the teenager whose life had touched so many. As media interest exploded, tributes poured in from celebrities, musicians, and public figures. The NRG Music Festival, where Jay had last been seen before heading to Masca, released a statement calling the situation devastating and extending sympathy to his loved ones. But even amid the outpouring of support, the public response wasn't universally positive. As with the disappearance of Nicola Bulley, the online response quickly turned hostile in parts. Social media became saturated with conspiracy theories, unverified claims, and speculative commentary, some of which directly targeted the family and their motives. Debbie Duncan later spoke of being terrorized by internet trolls, receiving disturbing prank calls and abusive messages, even after her son had been confirmed dead. The GoFundMe campaign set up to raise funds for the search also attracted unwanted scrutiny. Although the platform confirmed that all the money would be routed directly to the family and verified parties, skepticism online fueled rumours and accusations that required public clarification. Still, for every comment laced with suspicion, there were hundreds more filled with compassion, as communities across the UK continued to rally in Jay's memory and in support of the loved ones left behind. A lot of public speculation came from statements released by Mark Williams-Thomas. As public interest in Jay Slater's case surged, a familiar figure entered the investigation. Former detective and investigative journalist Mark Williams-Thomas. Known for his role in uncovering high-profile cases, including the Jimmy Savile scandal and his involvement in the Nicola Bulley case, Mark Williams-Thomas began his own parallel investigation into Jay's disappearance, offering his findings to the public through updates and interviews. Mark Williams-Thomas claimed he had spoken directly to the two British men who were with Jay at the Airbnb property in Masca. In one particularly explosive claim, Mark Williams-Thomas suggested that according to his source, Jay had left the Airbnb in a rush, appearing panicked, and was believed to have taken 2 knives with him. This revelation, though never officially confirmed by the Spanish authorities, reignited speculation across social media and in the press. Why would Jay have left so suddenly? What caused him to arm himself, if he truly did? And what exactly happened during his time inside that secluded Airbnb in the early morning hours of the 17th of June? The knives allegation, along with the earlier reports that Jay had claimed to be lost, dehydrated, and injured from a cactus, created a troubling picture, raising more questions than answers. Had Jay felt threatened? Had there been a confrontation? Or was he simply confused and scared in unfamiliar surroundings? These claims also amplified suspicion around the 2 men Jay had accompanied to the mountains. While Spanish police had questioned and cleared both individuals, stating they were not relevant to the investigation, public confidence was not so easily settled. The ambiguity surrounding Jay's decision to leave the Airbnb on foot in a remote area with alleged weapons only deepened the mystery. Williams-Thomas himself was careful to clarify that he was not accusing anyone of wrongdoing, but that he was investigating all avenues in pursuit of the truth. His involvement sparked both praise from those who believed he was doing the job authorities would not, and criticism from those who questioned the ethics of publicizing unverified claims during an open investigation. Regardless of where the truth lies, the suggestion that Jay left the Airbnb carrying knives has become one of the most debated elements of this case, a moment that could hold critical insight into Jay's state of mind and the events leading up to his disappearance. As Jay Slater's disappearance gained global attention, the media response and public obsession took on a life of its own. What started as a missing persons case rapidly evolved into a sensationalized mystery, fueled by 24-hour news cycles, viral TikTok videos, Facebook group speculation, and a relentless stream of amateur online detectives. Traditional media outlets across the UK, Spain, and beyond devoted extensive coverage to every update. Headlines speculated on Jay's final moments, analysed timelines, published photographs of search zones, and broadcast interviews with family members. But as the days wore on with no breakthrough, the tone of the coverage began to shift, from concerned to speculative, from reporting facts to dissecting theories. It was on social media, however, where the case spiraled into something far more toxic. Platforms like TikTok, Facebook, and YouTube became saturated with videos, screenshots, and commentary that blurred the line between the truth and fiction. Dozens of Facebook groups emerged, many gaining thousands of members within days. Users shared theories about Jay's companions, the Airbnb, secret messages, and supposed sightings, often based on little more than rumour or manipulated images. One of the most viral pieces of misinformation was a Snapchat image supposedly showing Jay with a stolen watch, a watch his mother later denied had anything to do with him. Another widely circulated image appeared to show Jay smoking a cigarette outside the Airbnb, but it was later confirmed that the person in the image could not be definitively identified as Jay. In some cases, videos with millions of views accused people close to Jay of being involved in his disappearance. This included speculation about his friends, the men he stayed with in Masca, and even his grieving family. Many of these videos were accompanied by aggressive commentary, clickbait thumbnails, and sensationalized editing designed to attract attention, regardless of the emotional impact on Jay's loved ones. The level of speculation became so intense that Jay's Instagram account was allegedly accessed by someone during the search, leading his family and friends to fear that it had been hacked. Meanwhile, prank calls and disturbing messages were sent to his mother, including a particularly cruel message stating that she would never see her son again, a message that left her horrified and shaken. Experts, including Ginger Gorman, author of Troll Hunting, and Dr. Sarah Polak, a media and social science expert, criticized the online frenzy. They described the phenomenon as a dangerous form of apophenia, where people draw patterns and conclusions from randomness, and warned about the lasting harm such obsessive behavior can cause to real families experiencing unimaginable trauma. Even Amazon came under fire for hosting and selling books written about Jay's disappearance before the facts were even clear, many of which were written purely to profit from the online interest. Despite these criticisms, the viral interest didn't fade. In many ways, Jay's case became a reflection of our time, a deeply personal tragedy transformed into global true crime entertainment, leaving the family to endure public grief under the unforgiving glare of digital scrutiny. On the 10th of August 2024, the town of Oswald's Whistle came to a solemn standstill. Hundreds of mourners, family, friends, and members of the wider community gathered to pay their final respects to Jay Slater, the 19-year-old whose disappearance and tragic death had gripped hearts across the nation. The service was held in Jay's hometown, where blue, his favourite colour, became a symbol of remembrance. Attendees were encouraged to wear something blue in his memory, creating a powerful visual tribute that matched the blue ribbons that had already adorned the streets in previous weeks. Inside the packed venue, tributes poured in from those who knew Jay best. His mother, Debbie Duncan, described his son as a beautiful boy with a heart full of laughter. His former football coach from Huncoach United FC shared emotional memories of Jay's early years on the pitch, describing him as a natural footballer who always played with a smile on his face. The service struck a delicate balance between grief and celebration. Jay was remembered not just as a victim of tragedy, but as a vibrant, loyal, and deeply loved young man whose presence had brightened the lives of those around him. A book of condolences was made available for mourners to sign, and a candle-lighting ceremony followed, a quiet moment of reflection as the community bid farewell. Dozens of blue balloons were later released into the sky, each carrying handwritten messages from loved ones. The overwhelming turnout reflected not just the sorrow of the family in mourning, but the support of a community that stood beside them, united in grief, but also in remembrance. Jay's final journey ended in Lancashire, where he was laid to rest, though questions around the events of his final day still linger. The love and unity shown at his funeral offered one clear truth: Jay Slater will not be forgotten. So nearly 10 months after Jay Slater's tragic death, a formal inquest began at Preston Coroner's Court to examine the circumstances surrounding his final hours. Overseen by Lancashire's senior coroner, Dr. James Adley, himself nearing retirement, the proceedings drew considerable media and public attention, with tight security in place due to the case's high-profile nature. From the outset, the inquest was marked by frustration and heartbreak. Central to all proceedings were efforts to locate two critical witnesses: Ayub Kasim, also known by the nickname Johnny Vegas, and Stephen Roccas, known by the nickname Rocky, the men who had last been seen with Jay at the Airbnb in Masca. Despite numerous attempts, including the involvement of the Metropolitan Police, neither man could be located, and the coroner acknowledged he had no confidence of success in tracking them down. Their absence left a significant gap in the narrative of what transpired during Jay's final hours. Jay's mother, Debbie Duncan, pleaded with the court not to merely read their initial statements into evidence. Her emotional appeal underscored the family's desire for direct accountability, stating, "We know he died. We know he had an accident, she said. But from leaving that holiday resort to going up there, we want these people in front of us. Her pleas led to the adjournment of the inquest to allow for further efforts to locate the witnesses. A pivotal moment came when pathologist Dr. Richard Shepard testified that Jay's cause of death was a severe traumatic head injury. The injury, he explained, was so devastating that Jay would have been rendered unconscious immediately after impact. Other injuries were also noted, but it was the head trauma that was decisive. Toxicology reports offered further insight, but also raised questions. British toxicologist Dr. Stephanie Martin found ecstasy and a cocaine metabolite in Jay's system, evidence of recent drug use. Spanish tests revealed ketamine, possibly due to the time gap between the two autopsies. Dr. Martin confirmed that the timing of the drug intake couldn't be precisely established, but likely occurred within 24 hours of death. Digital evidence revealed that Jay's phone had stopped recording data at precisely 8:49 a.m. on the 17th of June, but in the 50 minutes prior, it had logged a high number of steps and inclines, suggesting he was moving actively through difficult terrain. The Dutch search and rescue team who assisted in locating Jay's body confirmed the area where he was found was steep and dangerous, and it would have been nearly impossible to carry someone there. They believed Jay had likely walked the path himself. Testimony from a friend, Josh Forshaw, introduced unsettling new information. He revealed that Jay had sent him messages referencing a £12,000 Rolex and attempting to sell it for £10, a term Josh explained as local slang for £10,000. Jay also allegedly sent Josh a photo of the two knives tucked into his trousers, captioned, "In case it kicks off." These revelations, if true, painted a more complex and troubled picture of Jay's final hours. Additional messages sent from Jay's phone in the early morning of June 17th included the ominous line, "They've got a marker on me." One friend replied, "You need to get home, lad. You're off your barnet." These cryptic messages added to the air of confusion and fear surrounding Jay's disappearance. Further complications arose when the court heard that Jay's travelling companions, Lucy Law and Brad Hargreaves, could also not be located. Lucy was believed to be in Tenerife, and Brad was reportedly on a holiday booked months earlier. Police had attempted to serve summonses to both, but were unsuccessful. Due to the absence of key witnesses and the overwhelming emotional weight of the hearing, the inquest was adjourned once again. It's expected to resume in the coming months. Until then, Jay Slater's family remains without the full answers they so desperately seek. Ayub Kasim and Stephen Rockus, known informally as Rocky, were among the last people to have seen Jay Slater alive. The Airbnb, tucked away in the remote northern hills of Tenerife's Masca village, became the focus of intense scrutiny. Jay had travelled there with them in the early hours following the NRG Music Festival, away from his own group, away from familiar surroundings. But since Jay's disappearance and the discovery of his body, both Kasim and Rockus conducted several live appearances on social media platforms, but have seemingly vanished from view since the start of the inquest. At the inquest into Jay's death, it was revealed that despite extensive efforts, including involvement from the Metropolitan Police, neither men could be located. Witness summons were issued, and even phone contact with someone believed to be Rockus yielded little. The person who answered denied being him. The coroner, Dr. James Aidley, expressed serious doubt that either of these two witnesses would ever be found. Yet he acknowledged the family's deep distress and their desire for answers. "You wish to speak to the witnesses who last saw him," he said. "I am not confident of success, but I will do what I can." The mystery deepens when considering why Kasim, nicknamed Johnny Vegas, and Rockus have not come forward, especially given the gravity of the case. The Airbnb was the last known location Jay was confirmed to be, and any insight into his state of mind, behaviour, or movements after leaving would be invaluable. But in the absence of their testimony, critical pieces of the puzzle remain missing. Their silence has led to a growing number of questions, from the public, the press, and Jay's grieving family. Were they hiding something? Are they in danger? Or are they simply avoiding the glare of suspicion? Until these questions are answered, the story of Jay Slater's final hours will remain unresolved. Among the most perplexing aspects of the Jay Slater case is the role, or lack thereof, played by his two close friends, Lucy Law and Brad Hargreaves. They were the ones who travelled with Jay to Tenerife. They were among the last to communicate with him. And yet, in the months following his disappearance and death, both have effectively vanished from public view, and now even the reach of law enforcement. At the inquest into Jay's death, Lancashire's senior coroner, Dr. James Aidley, made a stark revelation. We can't find them. They have denied who they are, and we have police looking for them, but we can't find them. Attempts to serve witness summonses on both were reportedly made, with Lucy believed to be in Tenerife, and Brad said to be away on a holiday booked months earlier. Neither appeared in court, neither gave evidence, and yet both were deeply entangled in the critical final moments of Jay's known life. Lucy Law was the last known person to speak with Jay by phone. According to her, he was disorientated, lost, and dehydrated. She said he told her he was walking in the middle of nowhere and needed water. She later reportedly went to the Airbnb in an attempt to retrace his steps, but only after alerting the authorities. Her testimony, had it been delivered in person and under oath, might have clarified key details about his mental and physical state, what he had said to her, and why she waited before going to the property. Brad Hargreaves was also contacted by Jay on the morning of his disappearance. Brad reportedly stated that Jay called him at around 7:30 a.m, saying he had no money for a taxi. Brad suggested just get a taxi and jump out without paying. He claimed that while Jay still sounded under the influence, he did not seem distressed or afraid. But with both friends now effectively unreachable and unwilling to engage publicly or legally, their absence has left a silence that echoes loudly throughout the corridors of speculation. What were their full interactions with Jay in the final hours? What were they doing during that critical window of his disappearance? Why have they not stepped forward? These are not just questions from the media or public. They are the questions of a mother, Debbie Duncan, who lost her son under murky and heartbreaking circumstances, and who has pleaded with the coroner to bring these people in front of us. But so far, Lucy and Brad have chosen to stay silent. The death of Jay Slater has, from the beginning, been riddled with uncertainty. But nowhere is that uncertainty more profound than in the forensic details. The official medical findings, toxicology results, and physical evidence that are meant to bring clarity. Instead, they raise new questions. At the inquest, Home Office pathologist Dr. Richard Shepherd stated that Jay Slater died from a severe head injury. He explained that Jay likely fell from a significant height, suffering trauma so devastating that he would have been rendered immediately unconscious. The fall was described as consistent with a heavy fall from height, and the condition of Jay's body, found in a remote ravine 28 days after he disappeared, showed extensive decomposition, consistent with exposure to intense heat and time in the open. But the cause of the fall and the condition he was in when he entered the ravine are a lot less clear. Jay's toxicology report revealed that he had MDMA, commonly known as ecstasy, in his system, along with a cocaine metabolite, an indicator that cocaine had been used, possibly in conjunction with alcohol. British toxicologist Dr. Stephanie Martin told the court that the substances were likely taken within a day or so of his death. She also noted that Spanish authorities conducted separate tests, which found ketamine and its possible metabolites, a substance not detected in the UK results. The discrepancy was explained as possibly due to the timing of the two post-mortem investigations, but it leaves open the possibility that further substances were in his system. Josh Forshaw, a witness and acquaintance of Jay's, added another layer of complexity. He claimed that on the night Jay disappeared, he had taken MDMA and possibly ketamine. He also alleged that Jay had sent him a photo showing two knives tucked down his trousers with the caption, "In case it kicks off," and had spoken of stealing an expensive watch, which he planned to sell for £10,000. Whether these messages reflect bravado, reality, or something more ominous remain unclear, but they raise the stakes on the questions of Jay's mental and physical state, and whether he may have been running from something or someone. There were also questions about whether Jay had been carried to the ravine or made his way there alone. Members of the Dutch rescue team who assisted in the search said it would be impossible for someone to carry another person to the spot where Jay was found, suggesting he must have walked there himself. They described the final descent as steep and extremely dangerous, the kind of terrain no one would enter lightly. Adding to the mystery was the message Jay reportedly sent to a friend at 2:39 a.m. on the day he vanished. "They've got a marker on me." The friend replied, "You need to get home, lad. You're off your bonnet." Whether this was paranoia, drug-induced anxiety, or a real threat, no one knows. Ultimately, while forensic science may explain how Jay died, a fall resulting in a catastrophic head injury, it has so far failed to answer why he ended up there, what led him to such a remote place, and who, if anyone, might have contributed to his tragic final moments. The disappearance and death of Jay Slater quickly escalated from a missing persons case into a national spectacle, one that gripped the UK and far beyond. As days turned into weeks without answers, the story became fuel for online speculation, amateur sleuthing, and a relentless media storm. Almost immediately, Jay's case drew comparisons to the disappearance of Nicola Bulley, another high-profile missing persons case that became overrun by social media conspiracies. Just like in that instance, Jay's family found themselves not only dealing with unimaginable grief, but also battling widespread misinformation, cruel speculation, and online abuse. On platforms like TikTok and Facebook, theories spiraled out of control. Speculation ranged from cartel involvement to claims Jay had faked his own disappearance. Hashtags like Jay Slater and Missing Jay gained millions of views. In some cases, users even travelled to Tenerife to conduct their own investigations, posting live updates and commentary from the island, often with no credible knowledge of the case. Some were seen filming content in the remote areas near Masca, potentially contaminating the scene. Jay's mother, Debbie Duncan, was subjected to waves of online harassment, including prank calls claiming her son was being held hostage. The family's GoFundMe campaign, set up to help cover the costs of the search, was questioned by online trolls, despite GoFundMe verifying that it was legitimate and controlled by Jay's family. We also know that the initial GoFundMe page was set up by Lucy Law. This raised significant questions. Since then, several fake campaigns have also appeared, prompting GoFundMe to issue takedown notices and public statements. As the search continued, public frustration mounted. Many demanded more involvement from the British authorities. Some accused the Spanish police of mishandling the case, particularly after the search was officially paused on June the 30th. Only later did it emerge that searches had continued in secret under a court order to deter curious onlookers. In the United Kingdom, Channel 5 had scheduled a documentary titled The Jay Slater Mystery, Missing or Murdered, to air in July 2024, before Jay's body was discovered. It was subsequently pulled from the broadcast schedule following his confirmed death, amid growing criticism about the media's handling of the case. Journalists, too, came under scrutiny. Some reports were accused of sensationalism, and others of failing to properly fact-check claims before publication. Meanwhile, ethical questions arose about the responsibility of media outlets in covering unresolved tragedies with compassion rather than profits in mind. Among the voices calling for restraint were cyber hate experts like Ginger Gorman and academics such as Dr. Sarah Pollack, who warned that social media was dehumanizing victims and their families, turning personal tragedies into entertainment for the algorithm. Jay's story has become emblematic of our digital era, a tragic event amplified and distorted through the lens of internet culture. It highlighted the fine line between the public interest and exploitation, and raised important questions about how society processes grief, mystery, and truth in an age where anyone with a phone can claim to be a detective. As the dust settles, what remains is not only the grief of a family and community, but a cautionary tale of how quickly a tragedy can become content, and how difficult it is to reclaim dignity once it does. Jay Slater was just 19 years old, a man described by his family as kind-hearted, full of energy, and passionate about football, friends, and his future as a bricklayer. He travelled to Tenerife for what should have been a carefree holiday, a break with his friends at a music festival under the sun. But somewhere along the winding paths of Masca, something went tragically wrong. There are still no clear answers as to why Jay was in such a remote area, why he left so abruptly, and what truly happened in the hours leading up to his disappearance. The theories continue to swirl, some grounded in fact, others in speculation. But at the center of it all remains a grieving family and a community devastated by the loss of someone they loved deeply. As we close this episode, we extend our deepest sympathies to the Slater family, Jay's friends, and everyone impacted by this tragedy. May the truth, whatever it may be, come to light in time, and may Jay rest in peace. If the stories moved you, please consider sharing it to raise awareness about the impact of digital culture on real-life tragedies. Please like, comment, and subscribe to the Silent Casebook as we continue to examine the facts, respectfully, truthfully, and always with care for the victims and their families. For those who have been following this case closely, we highly recommend checking out the brilliant works by Unfiltered, a content creator who has been resolute in his pursuit of answers since the very beginning. His deep analysis and commitment to uncovering the truth have made his channel an invaluable resource. You'll find a link to his channel in the description below.